In this tutorial, we're going to cover Adobe Illustrator Classroom in a Book, Chapter 6, which is all about drawing with the pen tool, and this is part 3, where we're actually going to start finishing up our drawing, because we've gotten to the point where we have our beautiful coffee cup drawn, and now we just need to start playing with a few of those other items. So let's go ahead and turn the text layer on, and look at this logo that we've got so far. So I'm going to do a Control plus, zoom in, grab that. So I want to change this line into an arrow. How do we do that? Let's go ahead and grab our selection tool and grab that line. Remember, lines are just really a stroke. So if we double click over here in our properties panel, or just single click, we're going to get a few different items. We want to make sure our weight goes up to 8 points. We want to change it to a dashed line. And our dashed line, we want our first dash value to be 4, our gap to be 2, and we want to make sure that we have our align to corners selected. Then we're going to go ahead and press enter and OK. Oh. So we've got what we've got so far. It's kind of a cute little thing going on. So let's do a Control S, save what we've got so far. So it doesn't really look like an arrow much yet. Let's go ahead, grab our selection tool, grab our line, come back into the word stroke, and you see we get these options called arrowheads. So our one arrowhead, we want to have a circle, and the other head we want to kind of have the fletching, the arrow, the feather part at the end. So on the first one, let's go ahead and jump down to arrow number 21. Which will give us the dot. Yes, it's huge. And you want to make it 30%. So it's going to make it much smaller. For the other arrow, we want to go ahead and change it to arrow number 17. And change that to about 50%. And we want to make sure that we tell it that we want it to go off of the line. That we don't want to be on the line. We want to be off of the line. So that's where we're going to go ahead and figure out how to customize that arrow. So the next thing, if we were to input this right now, our coffee cup would be clear, which we don't necessarily want. So let's go ahead and grab our selection tool, grab that coffee cup, and fill it with white. So right now we've filled this shape. If you're going to do something like change the background, you need to make sure you go in here, fill this shape right here with no fill, so it's see-through, depending on how you're going to end up playing with it. So let's do a Control minus, see what we've got so far. Let's grab our spoon and kind of arrange our spoon. Let's go to Object, Transform, and we want to rotate it. And let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. And we don't need a copy of it. So right now, angle should be 90. I don't know why it's doing 25. And let's say, okay, there we go. And let's drag it down to where you're going to put it up. Undo. All right. Object, transform, rotate, 90 degrees, and okay. Now I can grab my selection tool, grab my spoon, and decide where you're going to put it. So if you want to, you can cover up the whole bottom of your cup that you just spent so much time playing with. Alright, so what else are we going to play with it? We need to go ahead and fill it with a color. So let's come here to our fill and choose one of these colors of gray. Choose kind of a light one. It's up to you as to what you're going to do with it. You can decide, I don't really like that stroke to be as heavy. I want to back it off a little bit so it looks more like a spoon. And of course, you can always nudge it around with your arrow keys as to how or where you're going to put that. Alright, so one of the next things we need to work on is creating the coffee beans. So if you look at our original, we have coffee beans here that we need to add to our coffee cups. So let's do a Control S, make sure we save what we've got so far. And to create our coffee beans, we're actually going to use the pencil tool. So let's go ahead and turn our template back on so we see this Artboard 2, which has our template for our coffee beans in it. So we're going to go ahead and grab our pencil tool. And where is the pencil tool hiding? The pencil tool is where? It's under the shaper tool. So where is shaper? Ah, come back. Undo. Come back in. Alright, there we go. Now we're redocked. Alright, so our shaper tool is here, and I want pencil. So it's just under your rectangle. Make sure our template is turned back on. So with the pencil, it actually lets us draw freeform, but then we'll actually clean up what we draw. So let's go ahead and grab our pencil tool. If we double click on pencil, we're going to get a tool options. Now, depending on this fidelity, how closely do you want it to mimic what you've got so far? So I like right between kind of the middle and smooth. We want to make sure that keep selected is turned on. We want alt keys toggle is on. We want the closed paths and edit selected paths and say OK. Alright, from there we're going to go ahead and draw around this coffee bean. So you can see with the asterisk it tells us we're about to create a new path. So what I'm going to do is just take and drag along the outline of my coffee bean. Clearly I can't trace, and close it, but it's going to go ahead and clean that up for me a little bit, which is awesome. So with my pencil I can actually bring it back in and redraw those sections. So you're kind of like cutting pieces out. So it was making a new path. So I have to go right next to it, kind of redraw until I get the shape that I want. So I'm okay with that part of the coffee bean. So now I need to be able to do some straight sections. So let's go down here to coffee bean letter B. I'm going to start here, go from my red X up to my B, and if I try and hold shift, what's going to happen? I'm going to go straight down, which is not what I want. So I'm going to go to grab this, come up and around, and I'm going to hit alt this time and come down to my X and create my path that way. Alright, so we know for straight lines, start at our C, come on up and around, now hold shift and come down until you get your bits and pieces of your coffee bean the way you want it. So we want to go ahead and we can rotate these. So while we're still on C, let's go to Object and Transform, come to Rotate, and let's do a -25 because we just want to tip it a little bit and say OK. Nope, cancel. Alright, so let's go ahead and color this coffee bean. I'm going to grab my selection tool, grab that top coffee bean. I'm going to come over here to my fill, and notice you've got some colors already down here. So you've got one called coffee bean. So let's go ahead and call that one coffee bean. And let's come down to our next one. Grab part B, fill, and there's a second coffee bean color which is a little bit lighter. Put it in there. And let's do the same for that part C. So now you have your three pieces. I'm going to go ahead and turn template back off so I'm not looking at my lines. I'm going to grab my selection tool. I'm going to drag that one half of the coffee bean up here, and then I'm going to grab my other half, bring it up here. And you're going to kind of have to adjust these and play with them until they relatively fit what you have going on, until you're happy-ish with it. Once you're happy with it, make sure you use your selection tool and group it together. Now you can take and with your selection tool drag it over to your other artboard. Since this artboard is empty, let's go over here to artboard and coffee bean and throw it away. You don't need that one anymore. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over here. Now you've got our coffee bean. It's ginormous, so I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I can have multiple coffee beans if I hit Alt. So maybe I want to put coffee beans all over the place. Totally up to you as to how and where and what you're going to do with your various coffee beans. I don't know how big a coffee bean is, but these seem obnoxiously large. Alright. So we've got some coffee beans here now. Let's do a Control S to save. And let's go ahead and play with the join tool, because you notice right here, if we look at our Steam, we have some issues going on with our Steam. So we've got kind of this extra part here, we've got this extra section over here. So let's go to View and come down here to Steam. Alright, with that, we want to grab our join tool, which is under the pencil. So our pencil's over here. We want this one that says join. So what we're going to do is come over here and we want to join these two pieces. So I'm going to do Control plus, come in a little bit, and I'm going to take, it kind of looks like an eraser, and drag it over the part I want to connect. This is actually called a scrubber, and it's going to connect those two pieces. I can also have it scrub and take things off. So you see I've got extra here. I'm going to take and drag straight across and pull off those extra pieces. So now they're all trimmed and joined and pretty. So let's go ahead, grab our selection tool and grab our Steam. Let's go to our fill, come down to our fill, and you actually have a color called Steam, which is kind of a cool gradient. I'm going to turn my stroke way down because I don't want it to be that big. So I'm going to do a Control minus and then kind of see what's going on here. If you want to, you could add a second path right back here to kind of make it look more like a 3D cup. Totally up to you. You're done with the spoon artboard, so let's go ahead and delete the spoon and delete the artboard. So let's go ahead and get rid of that one. So now you're down to the one element, which is what you'll end up using in your publication. So it's up to you as to how you're going to do that. If you want to, right now, if you do a file export as a ping, your options, obviously you want 300 and your background is transparent. So this can go then onto a product mockup, it could go on to something else, totally up to you as to how you're going to do it. Maybe you decide you don't like how the bullseye coffee is written. You can always go into layers, go into text, and play with those individual elements. Maybe you want it to be pink instead of gray. Totally up to you as to how. Maybe you want to take that part off and put your own logo in there. So it's up to you for you to create this the way you want it to be for your publication. And that's all we need for this one.